different mixes of stuff. I would bet with you, for instance, New York City has cars as their predominant problem and power plants as not very many. Where if you went to Wyoming, I bet it goes the other way around. I bet it's all about power plants. They're a major electricity exporter, and they have no people. So what are they doing with cars? Right? So you shouldn't get the right answers in all these, the same answers in all these places, and yet the regulations are kind of set to produce some sameness. So that would be a possible answer, very different. It wouldn't be as Machiavellian. What do economists want to do with this? Well, I blew up the relevant piece of the diagram, and I asked, if power plants, instead of abating 6.7, abate 2.7, what happens? Well, marginal cost of abatement for power plants is the top curve. How much money do power plants save? The area under the marginal cost of abatement. Right? The area under marginal cost is cost. So if we go back this way, the area under marginal cost of abatement is the dark and the light colored diagram. You have the dark and light colored areas, and that amount is saved. But to keep pollution the same, what has to happen? What has to happen is that cars have to abate 4 million more. Well, what's their cost of abating? Their cost is the area under their marginal cost of abatement curve, and it's only the light area. So how much money is saved? Well, deadweight loss is the amount that's saved. Because power plants literally save dark plus light. The cars expend light. Right? The cars are moving to have more pollution. Their diagram's up on top. Right? So they get more pollution. So more cutbacks. So they spend money. They spend the light. The difference between the two is the dark. So the dark is the amount of money that we could have for free if only we regulated this better. And that's a deadweight loss. The amount of money you could have for free. Doing the wrong thing, compare the costs to the cost of doing the right thing. The difference between the two is the deadweight loss. So that's the deadweight loss from not getting the right answer or not letting them trade. Can you let them trade? How would you do that? And we're economists, right? We want to have a trading game. Can you have a trading game between cars and power plants? Could you do it? Come on, it's inventive time. How are you going to do it? Yeah, solve this problem. It's worth $1 billion. Well, you know how you can't do it, right? I can't give you each permits so that every Californian, all 36 million of us, had some permits as well as dollar bills in their pocket. We know that's not going to work. There's just too many people involved, and it's going to be a mess. All right, so I can't do that. So what do I have to do to the oil industry? Okay, and that's more or less what we did as of January 1st, right? So as of January 1st, we have carbon permits, and we brought the oil industry into the permit world. So for them to sell to you, they've got to own a carbon permit for the gas they sell you. And there are only like 4 or 5 majors of them, and there are a finite number of utilities who hold the permits on the other side. It's not going to take very long for these guys to call each other on the phone and do whatever they want to do. Will that entirely work? I'm not sure. It's supposed to work. If it's really set up right, and you believe this, what happens is that the stationary guys start buying the permits away from the oil companies, if this is really right. And so the price of gasoline goes up a lot more than we think it's going to go up. But if you read the law, I'm sure it has lots of little clauses in it to make sure that all of this doesn't happen. Right? So this would mean they would trade a lot of permits. And we'll see. After January 1, you'll see. If they trade a lot of permits, it's not what people expected. So we have deadweight loss, and we do have a way of taking care of it if what we wanted was carbon. We might also try it with NOx. Why is that not going to be so great? Could you really charge the oil companies for the NOx that your car put out? Well, you burn a gallon of gasoline, isn't it so many grams per mile? Yeah, yeah. So the cars are real different. They're as much as like 10 to 1, I think. So I think if you look at the standard, you'll find a few cars that just barely make the standard. And then if you look and see what the ultra-low emissions vehicles and stuff are, they're 10th. So there's really big scope for how you build your car, for how much NOx comes out. So they won't work for that. But think of a way to make it work. You got a career ahead of you. So let's just go over and see what kind of things we could do and whether or not we think those things would work or would make it good or bad. Well, emission standards, what's in favor of them? If you can see how much they emit, and you're not worried about the trading parts, you're not worried about the flexibility, then that's not a bad idea. You could do it. It's feasible. Is it going to be least cost? Well, no, there's no flexibility. If you have an emission standard, would somebody like to find a way to produce things better within existing emissions? Yes. It's not going to do anything to innovation. Input standards, why would you do it? Because you can't see the emissions. And you think there's a tight link between the inputs and the emissions. So then you could do it. Right? So sometimes you could actually do it. You can see the stuff. Or you're going to get the least cost? No, again, you don't have the trading. You don't have the flexibility. You also leave out the process. So if you just think of a car, you can see the gasoline coming in. But you care about how it's burned. And so just an emission standard isn't enough. You've got just an input standard for a car isn't enough. You need two things. You need how much gas goes in times how much emissions per kilometer. So you've got to get the other thing as well. So it won't work well. Right? What about innovation? Yeah, innovation is always good, but what it really does is it encourages you to get out of the thing that's being regulated. So if I regulate gasoline and I don't regulate diesel, what are they going to do? You're going to see a proliferation of diesel cars. Surprise. Right? So they will substitute out of the thing you regulate, and possibly not in a way you like. So it can be a little hard to handle that. Technology standards, we don't like these, but they're easy to monitor. If I say, I got a standard for replacement windows. You have to have an R value of at least 15. And I make the manufacturers test them, and then I look to see whether or not you installed windows that have the approved seal on them. I can monitor that. It's not efficient. There may be a better way to get your building not to leak heat. So I don't allow you to be inventive. You've got to do it my way, and my way may not be the right way. Even if my way is the right way now, it can take you 2 decades to change the code to how it should be done. There could be much better ways invented along the lines. So you have to really worry about a technology standard freezing in something that seemed like a good idea. That's its major problem. But the advantage is I can see how you built your building. You built it according to the standard, or you didn't. And that's really useful. Least cost, of course, no, because there might be better ways or different ways. It might be better to insulate office buildings, but leave classroom buildings a lot looser because you want the air to change. Yeah? So there might be all kinds of ways. You should have traded around at a university your total efficiency. And this wouldn't let you do it. It makes you build them all the same. This obviously kills innovation. If you say you have to do it my way and this is my way, well, I think of a new way. So that's roughly what these three types of standards accomplish. The other answer, of course, is some sort of tax or some sort of trading scheme, and they both work off prices. We kind of know what the problem with that is. You have to be able to observe. So if you can observe the thing that's taxed, it works nicely. If you can't observe the thing that's taxed, it doesn't work nicely. And then once you put the tax on, get it at the right level, it's completely efficient. It does the right job. People have the right incentives to find ways to make things cheaper. Right? They have the right incentives to trade around the pollution to where it belongs. It all works well. So let's see a tax at work. So we charge 45 cents a pound for NOx. That was what was on our diagram. Okay? That's where the two lines cross. Charge the 45 cents. Clearly, that gets us back where we were before, or where we wanted to be. But take a look at what happens if you charge other prices. What happens if you charge a price, well, 60 cents? What happens to cars on the diagram? And they just can't make it. They're gone, the way the diagram is. This has gone to infinity or something. Let's take a look down here. We charge a little amount. Well, now I get very little abatement from power plants, and I get zero abatement from cars. I guess that's the way to interpret this. At the high, I get the maximum abatement from both. Way more abatement than I need. At the low, I get no abatement. So as you change the price up and down, what happens to you? You get any amount of abatement. So you don't know the diagram perfectly. Imagine instead of having the lines drawn, I know these lines. Imagine it might be this line, but it might be a little below and it might be a little above. Now if I set a price and have to live with it, I could get very different amounts of abatement. So if I charge a tax, then what becomes variable is the quantity of abatement. What happens instead if I do a cap and trade, which is what these things are? I say, hey, you got to abate 21 point whatever it is between the two of you. Work it out. Do I ever get the abatement amounts wrong? No, I get them right, right? They've got to do together the right amount of abatement. But will I necessarily end up at 45 cents? Well, again, think of my counterexample. In my counterexample, let me draw it to show you what goes wrong. Where's pen? Next, previous screen pointer. Pen. There we go. No, pen. So here, let me draw a different one. Okay. What would happen if the red one were true? They'd still trade, would they not? They'd still get to a place where it crosses. But the price wouldn't be 45 cents. It'd be much closer to 60 cents. So where do they take out the uncertainty? Not on how much abatement there'll be, but what the price will be. When you do these things, cap and trade puts the uncertainty on the price. The tax puts the uncertainty on the quantity. You got to choose one. So your regulator, it's a public health nuisance. You have to get the abatement. What are you going to do? You do the tax, or you do cap and trade. Got to protect public health here. What are you going to do? You do cap and trade, right? Because it puts the uncertainty on the price, and that you're willing to bear. If you ever read the California cap and trade stuff, and that's a couple days' work, as near as I can tell, you would find there are off-ramps. Why did they create an off-ramp? They created an off-ramp because suppose instead of it being here, this red line were way up at the top. Then the price would be politically too high, not something they could live with, and they'd rather that the system break and not charge that price and not get the right amount of abatement. So the actual regulations mix the two. They mostly let the price do what it will because we're not sure of what the marginal cost of abatement curve is. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And then they limit it at the extremes. So the reality knows about this problem and takes a reasonable way out. And that's more than is on our usual diagram. Now, I told you I knew one more fact. I knew that power plants in total had 13.4 million tons, and that where we started at 6.7 was after they had abated 6.7 million. And I checked 3 or 4 times, and Meredith's numbers are indeed exactly half. So I don't know where they come from. I'm going to live with them. Let's look at what happens if you do a tax. Here we go. Suppose we take the original spot. We did a tax of 93 cents to get the original outcome. Well, indeed, we get the original outcome. But the unabated emissions have to pay the tax. The unabated emissions tax, and I'll work out the amount. The tax revenue is this area. It's 93 cents times 6.7 million tons. You have dollars per pound times tons. But it turns out that's $13.7 billion. It's not a small piece of change. Look at the abatement costs. The abatement costs are the area under the marginal cost of abatement curve. And that's about half that amount. So you're moving around 2 times the money that it's costing to abate. Politically, that's a very difficult thing to do. Not only have you charged them this, that they have to abate, now you're making them pay a whopping amount, twice that amount, so in total it's 3x. Yeah, that's politically difficult. And I long for metric, but I actually carry out the 13.7. Another way you could do it is you could subsidize abatement. Now, if you subsidize abatement, you have to find the money to do it. Where do you get the money from? I'm going to subsidize abatement. Where am I going to get the money from? Magic. Magic would be a good answer. That's the political answer. That's correct. Now that we've gotten that off the table, what's the next possibility? What? And the government's going to get it from where? And when you say the word taxes, what will happen? Life as you know it will end as a politician, right? You can't say the word taxes. So this is politically infeasible until people grow up. But it has otherwise some nice properties. If they abated 6.7 again, how much would you have to pay them? You have to pay them the subsidy. 93 cents, indeed, would get them to abate 6 point, right? And you'd have to pay them the box. And their abatement costs are on the order of half the box. And so the government would end up paying the abatement costs plus an amount equal to the abatement costs. So even if you could get the tax revenue, that would be pretty hard to do. I mean, imagine going to a taxpayer and saying, yeah, it's going to cost them $6 billion to clean this thing up, but they'll only do it if I pay them $12 billion of your hard-earned money. Am I getting elected? No, I'm not getting elected. All right. What? Not American? I don't think anywhere. I think that's just a very hard sell. I think that's just an extremely hard sell. But it's efficient. It's just that I have to raise the money in some other way, and that could be hard. In terms of just building stuff, I'm not so sure that is crazy. I mean, I don't want to go out and tell power plants, here's how much money? Here's $12 billion for you to do $6 billion worth of work. So I'm not sure I want to take advantage of the fact that if I set the price of abatement correctly, they will then by themselves choose the right amount of abatement. That seems unattractive politically. But it's not unattractive to say, okay, so I have these power plants. It's now 1970 Clean Air Act amendment time. We've gone a couple of years, and these plants are not falling down dead and being replaced by new plants like I thought they should be. Geez, they seem to be able to keep them running forever. Maybe it's 1980, we've gone 10 years. At some point, people realized that these plants that were allowed to run would run forever. And so having a law that said, when the plant falls down dead and you build a new plant, you'll build a clean plant. And so, 10, 15, 20 years, we'll have all clean plants and we'll be done. Well, somewhere along the line, we realized it wasn't true. The plants would never fall down dead. They were far too valuable the way they were. What would have been wrong at that point was going in and saying, this plant that you have, this one could take an SCR. An SCR costs $200 million. We realized that we've not been able to force you to do that. So why don't we buy you an SCR and put it on the plant? So we will literally just pay for the pollution control itself. Where you have a discrete, obvious thing to do, then you'd be offering just to pay the abatement costs. Indeed, you'd have to raise taxes to do it. Or you'd have to do something clever, like you pay the abatement costs and you tax all electricity by a very small amount and take that money and pay for the abatement costs. That sort of thing would work practically. And you'd get the job done. You wouldn't be in 2010 still arguing about it. And you wouldn't have to pay the extras. It would cost you half as much. What do you lose? You don't know that they'll do the right amount of abatement. You don't really know where this curve is. You have to take the risk that your estimate of it is good enough and you'll work from your estimate. That's what you lose. The places in the United States that were heavily populated in the 1950s were able to do essentially this. The federal government offered out of our tax revenue 90 and sometimes 95% of the cost of building sewage treatment plants. So they just straight out went and paid for the equipment to clean up the mess. It turned out it worked very, very well. Two groups were opposed. Conservatives were opposed for the obvious reason, which is, what do conservatives not like? Taxes, yes, very good. Liberals were opposed. Can you guess their reason? Why do liberals not want to build subsidized sewage treatment plants? Yeah. There's just cities and people. We can't blame the corporations here, but that's a good response for why liberals would not like something. That's usually the right answer. But here, no. That would get you a very local argument. Yeah, there's nowhere anyone wants you to build a plant. Although near the house my brother and I own in New York, there's a swamp. The swamp used to have raw sewage in it, and now it's treated sewage in it. And so, yeah, we're in favor. Treated sewage is better than raw sewage in your nearby swamp. So, yeah, that would be a NIMBY kind of answer. So do classic American environmentalists like sprawl? No, right? You know what sprawl is? Danville. San Fernando Valley, right? Those are the definitions of sprawl. Instead of everyone living in one giant building in downtown LA, they actually spread out over the whole LA basin. How uncouth of them. And the story the liberal side told itself was that if you subsidize sewage treatment plants, you were just encouraging them, and they build more sprawl. There's something about it that doesn't really hold up, right? The number of people is not going to be changed by how many new suburbs we build. I mean, the number of people in the country and fertility decisions and things like that don't seem to be really dependent on urban sprawl. Maybe I'm wrong here. You can correct me if you think I'm real wrong. And so the people are going to exist. If the people exist, will there be sewage? Yes. And so the only thing to be discussed was where the sewage would be, not if it would exist. Nevertheless, between the left wing thinking that encouraging people with these new sewage treatment plants was bad and the right wing thinking that federal taxes used to subsidize sewage treatment plants in cities was wrong, between the two sides, they killed it off. The water quality got worse after that. I don't know where we are today, but if it's a rainy day yesterday, do you want to swim in LA? No, you don't. Huh. And why would that be? Yeah, because they can't handle the rainwater. What about swimming in the Hudson after a rain? Nope, don't do it. What about after a long dry period? Yes, it's quite clean. And so there still is a lot to be done there. If you're trying to do this more formally, you would have to think about what harm your taxes were doing. And that's an unclear number. My reading of the literature is 16 to 25% is the deadweight loss of taxation. I'm probably on the high side. If you went around and asked economists,